SuccessInTrucking.com presents In Their Own Words, observations from leaders and difference makers within the trucking industry.
So we were formed in March of 2007, and so this year in March was our 10th anniversary. So we've created a new logo, we've got some more ambitious goals for the coming decade, but we're also reminding people of what we've done in the last 10 years so that they know what our mission is, which our mission is simply to increase the percentage of women employed in the trucking industry. As you're probably aware, I've been in the trucking industry my entire career, and I was hired by a large motor carrier in central Wisconsin, and my job was manager of recruiting and retention programs. And they said, Ellen, figure out how to attract and retain non-traditional groups. Now, these were corporate level initiatives, so I wasn't really recruiting as much as meeting with corporate execs on, here's some ideas. And they said, how do we bring in more women and seniors and returning military and Hispanics? So I'd go to an AARP conference or, try to target those groups. But at the time, I was getting my pilot's license, and I belonged to an organization called Women in Aviation. And I loved it because it put me in touch with other women who were pilots. It helped me tap into their knowledge. And it occurred to me, why isn't there a women in trucking? So I kind of explored, and people suggested some very strong, influential women in the industry to serve on the board. We've got an attorney to put together all the paperwork, and we were born in March of 2007 with 12 women on my board. We're more diverse now. We have half men and half women, which we feel is better. But if you had told me 10 years ago that we would be meeting with truck manufacturers on truck cab design and ergonomics, or meeting with truck stops on safety and security and amenities, or going to the White House. I've been to the White House about 8 times now, and one of them was to receive an award for being a Transportation Innovator Champion of Change. And that was extremely, that was so neat. But to have the support of the industry, especially the large carriers, the manufacturers, to the drivers, to students who come to us as a resource. So we represent everyone in the industry, but I like to say we're not necessarily for women as much as we're about women. So about 17% of our members are men. Well, it's about just under 7%, and we actually have a Women in Trucking Index, so we're tracking that with the National Transportation Institute. Just under 7%. And 50 to 60% of women on the road are in a team configuration. And typically the average age of a female driver is 52. So typically they're married or dating someone who is a professional driver who says, why don't you come out on the road with me and get your CDL, or in the case of expediting, just come out on the road with me and let's team. So a lot of women will start that way, but some of them decide they want to, either the marriage or the relationship breaks up, or they just decide they want to run solo. And then they might be in the market for a truck. And it's been more of a challenge for women to buy a truck because of credit scores and things like that. If a woman has been a stay-at-home mom, she might not have built up that credit, so there might be other challenges. So we're there to help. We're there to point them in the right direction, be a resource. We also have a scholarship foundation where we can send them to school to help them get pay for their CDL if that's what they're looking for. But we're the resource to help them be successful. The model is amazing. Once you dig into it and understand that they're, in a way, holding a driver's hand, but they're the cheerleader. They're helping the driver be successful, and if that means helping them get financing for a truck, helping them spec the truck correctly, helping them find the best routes to make the most money, it's an amazing model. And so they have a higher percentage of female drivers than the national standard, and it's because they're there, they're supportive, and that's what women need, and men need that too. But for someone coming into the industry who might not be as familiar, it's great to have someone there saying, hey, we're cheering you on and we want to help you. So when a driver is a professional driver and they've got their commercial driver's license, the next progression is to be an owner-operator. And drivers think, well, I'm going to have a little bit more independence. I'll have more control over my life. But when they buy that truck, they're no longer a professional driver. They're a business owner. And I think that's the biggest challenge. And ES helps drivers understand that. Because if you don't get the fact that somebody's not going to be controlling your paycheck, your loads, your benefits, and your income as much, but suddenly you have a lot more control over that, and you have to make decisions that affect your income. Knowing that ES is there to help you make smart decisions based on their knowledge and other people's knowledge at the organization will make them much more successful. And yes, it is a partnership. And we had to get to know Jason and the ES organization as well. To have Jason sitting on my board of directors means that he's sitting elbow to elbow with some very large carriers, some manufacturers, some financial institutions, some industry suppliers who are very influential. And they, just the fact that they're sitting around a boardroom getting to know each other, and that it's at Women in Trucking makes it even more special. But they're all there with one goal, and that's to increase the percentage of women employed in the industry. And Jason has a model where he can be, let's say, a industry leader in sharing some best practices. And we're actually working on a best practices guide, and ES is part of that information so that we can share with other companies what can you do to attract more women, and what can you do to retain more women, and how can you make women and men more successful in what they're doing. Being a disruptor is a good thing, and the trucking industry, even though it's being forced to make a lot of changes from the outside, the movement from the inside hasn't been as fast as it could be. So let's talk about recruiting practices. If you can make people look at the recruiting practices differently and get them to think differently about things, and be a disruptor in that area and say this is no longer acceptable, or let's talk about safety bonuses. Let's talk about truck equipment. Let's talk about what are some of the things that this industry thinks is acceptable, and you can prove to them that they need to think about things differently so that they change from inside instead of being forced to change from the outside by regulations or by exterior markets or by the economy or things like that. So to make people look at things differently and make them change their practices based on that it's a good disruptor. 10 years ago, when I would talk to trucking company executives, they would say to me, we don't care if they're male or female, and we treat them all the same. And my response to them was, you shouldn't. And now we've come out with some reasons why they shouldn't. Women will go to a carrier for a different reason. Women will come into the industry for a different reason. Women have less turnover than men. We were just talking about leaving the industry in the first 90 days. We just found out that women actually don't leave because of home time. They leave because of relationships with their dispatcher, or the number one reason women leave a carrier is because of equipment. Maybe it's not safe, maybe it's, it's not ergonomic, whatever. That means that women are doing their homework. That means that women come in and ask a lot more questions and are more informed about what to expect. So I see going forward in the next 10 years, a lot more women buying their own trucks, becoming their own business owners, hiring other women. It used to be Smith & Sons Trucking, right? In fact, almost all those trucking companies out there used to be & Sons. And now you see companies where the daughters are taking over the businesses. And so why not moms hiring daughters, moms hiring nieces and sisters and things like that, and trucking companies that have a lot more women both in leadership areas and as drivers and as technicians in all the areas that we need people so badly right now.